Okay. Hi. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. My name is Joseph Dreesen. I am the Interim Senior Director for Alumni Affairs here at Berklee College of Music and the Boston Conservatory. Welcome to the second year of the Mentor Network. For those of you who are back for year two, we appreciate it. For those of you who are new, we hope your experience has been going well. It's definitely something we're building off of. We're always trying to innovate and get new ideas. Even in some of our training calls, the alumni, the mentors had some great ideas on how to gather things that they're looking for. So, we're always looking to improve this. So if you ever have thoughts or ideas, please let me know. We also have Nicole Millenzak from the Career Center here, as well, and Zach Lucia from the alumni team. The three of us have been working on this, so any feedback is more than welcome. Before we kick things off today, I just want to remind you we have two other events coming up this summer. So the first one's on Wednesday, July 13th, which is about developing your artist toolkit. And the other one's on Wednesday, July 27th, inside the interview. So this is like a breakdown of the interview, kind of job descriptions. So we're hoping this is a nice little arc to lead you to that moment. We will be sending more information about that out, including registration pages. So keep your eye out for that. If you have any questions, any thoughts, feel free to throw them into the chat. We'll be here to kind of be watching that as well. Okay, enough from me. We have three panelists today who are going to walk us through what it means to join the alumni community and how you can navigate that. So I'm going to actually have them introduce themselves since I always sell people short. I promise you I do that. Peter, can I pick on you to get things kicked off?
Yeah, so I grew up in San Diego, played in a bunch of bands in San Diego, grew up with a bunch of skateboarders, surfers, snowboarders, musicians, studied at Berklee, and then I was studying music business management, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than it is to be good. And I got an amazing internship working for a gentleman named Howard Kaufman at his management company called HK Management. And so from there, I did my internship, and it went really, really well. And Howard called me, gosh, you guys, it was like 2 weeks before graduating, and he goes, "What are you doing like when you get done?" I was like, "I don't know, I'm going to Europe with a backpack. I'm gonna go travel." And he just kind of says, "Well, how much money are you gonna make doing that?" I was like, "I don't know." And he goes, "Yeah, come work for me." So I went and moved out to LA, started working for Howard Kaufman and his partner Irving Azoff. And so I worked for them for about like 5 to 7 years. But yeah, doing the management thing, and then got into marketing and promotions, and then got into music production and a lot of different things. But that's kind of my story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I'll call on you next. Let me spotlight you here. Here we go.
Hello. Can everybody hear me? I'm using these. So my name is Stephanie Hernandez. I graduated in 2015. I went for the music business, the master's program. So global entertainment and music business. Definitely was one of the best years of my life because, different from the regular bachelor's degree. It's a little bit shorter, it's more intense, but you do get to meet people from all over the world, which is definitely great when you're building that network. The Berklee network, people say it's an asset, but really after you graduate, you really do get to see it. So after I graduated, I did a fellowship with Berklee. And so I got to stay on an extra year, which allowed me to not only meet people in my year, but also the year after. After that, I moved to Miami. I always wanted to work in the Latin music scene. So obviously Miami being the hub for that, it made complete sense for me to do that. And so I said yes to a lot of opportunities that came my way. Currently, I'm the marketing manager at Rich Music, which is one of the top indie labels in the industry. And before that, my path was interesting because I did a little bit of everything, like I just said. So I worked at iHeartRadio at first. That was kind of my first job after I graduated, and I did like digital, and I did events, and I did a marketing there. And then I actually from there found my way to a music nonprofit. So a little bit different from the business side, but it taught me a lot because I ended up landing a role in marketing and being in the nonprofit world. Funding is not always there. So, smaller teams, which forced me or helped me to acquire skills very quickly. So being the marketing manager there, I had to wear lots of different hats, which was great because I learned very quickly, and that kind of transferred over to the following experiences leading up to my current role, and overseeing a team now that they kind of do a lot of the things that I did in the past. So having that understanding really, really was helpful. But yeah, speaking about the network that was Berkeley, I think that was one of the most helpful things for me throughout my path after graduation, because we obviously all know that each city has a network. And before deciding I was going to come to Miami, I did connect with those networks, and I went to New York, and I went to LA, and I came to Miami, and I kind of got to meet those people. And they share their own personal experiences. And it was actually at a Berkeley networking event that I met people from Rich Music, which is my current employer. And so it goes full circle. I've done a lot of things all related to music business in different areas, touching upon nonprofit, education, and now the industry itself in the Latin sector. So that's kind of a little bit about me and what I do.
And then finally, we have Elena. Let me spotlight you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elena Gutierrez, and I am a graduate of the Boston Conservatory. Shout out to the merger, which I think has made my degree stronger and has made me look broader and has brought a global perspective to my degree, which I lacked before. So I love the representation that we have now being connected to Berkeley and Berkeley's global community. After I graduated in 2003, I got an agent for my showcase and I moved to New York. I have done work in TV and film and theater on both coasts, in East Coast and West Coast. And I toured the country with Mamma Mia for a long time. I moved back home after being on the road for too long, and had my son, and kind of transitioned into using my skills in a different way. I currently live in the Montclair area in New Jersey, and I work for an organization called Uncommon Schools, which is dedicated to serving historically under-resourced communities and closing the achievement gap. And lucky for me, I get to do so with performing arts skills every day in an elementary turning around school in the West Port of Newark. So that's where I am today.
Thank you, all three of you. So we kind of already touched upon, what was your path post-graduation. I guess my one thing we can kind of think about is thinking about where you are now. How was that different from where you thought you'd be on graduation day? Where did you picture yourself being, and how does that compare to what you're doing now?
I mean, I can go. So for me, it's interesting because, like I said, it wasn't a straight path, but that's okay. I also work for a music nonprofit in underserved communities, so I can relate to everything you were saying, Elena. But I think now, thinking about graduation, I am now where I wanted to be. However, the path to getting here was not, okay, I graduated and I landed that dream job in the side of the industry that I wanted to be in. So the path was interesting. So I kind of, because I have that now, I did end up where I wanted to be. But it took a lot of persistence, I would say. That was one of the biggest things after graduating, being good to people in the industry, because a lot of the people that I met who came to campus and were speakers, they actually helped and provided guidance. And even later, like, for example, I met somebody from South by Southwest. Like, now that I'm at this company, I reached out to them and I met them when I was a student. So the network kind of if you use it to your advantage and you stay in touch with not just classmates, but people that you met that were speakers or teachers or whoever. So I'm really happy with the path, and I did end up where I wanted to be. And that had to do a lot with networking.
That's
I don't know who wants to go next.
that's no,
I can keep
that's
talking,
awesome,
but
Stephanie. No, Stephanie, that's awesome. It's funny because like I'm a terrible example for somebody that is, graduating and not having a plan, because I got lucky, like I really did. But here's the thing about it, is that I got lucky because of my network and my relationships. Now, the one thing that ended up being different that I didn't expect leaving Berkeley was how many relationships from Berkeley, people from Berkeley, that I was going to keep in touch with. I had no idea. I thought that I was going to keep in touch with maybe like 3 or 4 people from Berkeley, but you guys, like, I can't stress enough, just like Stephanie was just saying, and I'm sure Elena is the same way. It's just like, man, Berkeley sticks together. And like, no matter where you're at, like, for instance, like, I remember I was on the band Chicago was playing a late night show, and the arranger that needed like the sheet music and stuff like that called the office, and it ended up being this kid I had ear training with. You know what I mean? And so like you just see that kind of stuff all the time. And yeah, that's the crazy thing to me, is I didn't realize how connected I was going to be to Berkeley post graduation. But yeah, like my 4 really good friends, Joe Mott, Steve Solinsky, and Jared Braverman, and then one of our other friends. But we all went to Berkeley together, and we all moved out into LA. And we would literally all, it was like our little safe hub, it was like the 4 of us just kind of sticking together. And before you know it, like friends of Berkeley and things like that started moving in town. And yeah, I can't stress enough, like not only the opportunities that you may get from associating yourself with fellow Berkeley alumni is important, but just even the support system, having other people that are in music or in music business or in songwriting, right, that are doing the grind just like everybody else is, people to be able to sit back and have a conversation with about the whole process. So yeah.
I was going to add to that before Elena jumps in, is that, staying in touch with Berkeley has also been really helpful. And I don't mean that in a cliche way, but like, now that I have this opportunity, I reach out to the institution to find interns or to even be a mentor, or, and we've gotten new hires because I've done that. So kind of providing those opportunities back. And these are people that I didn't know, but they're in the Berkeley network. So it kind of, it's a full circle of, you never know who you're going to meet. Because I also like had classmates that ended up working in Latin for different labels, and now our artists are working together. So we get to email and we're like, oh, we went to class together, and now you're representing this artist and I have this artist, and they're in the studio together. So you never really know how it's going to come together. But when I say that, people say the Berkeley network is huge, it actually is, and you don't realize until you're actually done.
Yeah,
and you
it's
see that.
So huge. And literally, you throw a rock and you hit somebody from Berkeley or Boca in the industry. Yeah. So, it's dead on.
But that woodshedding is binding. Like that stuff that we all went through, whether you were in one building or whether you were in another, we were all like in the trenches. And I think those connections we really can leverage. I mean, still to this day, there's some of my closest friends in my life. They all may not have gone into careers in theater eventually, but we really created some special memories while creating. To this point, in another way, I felt like the school cultivated me unknowingly as a teacher. Like, I didn't know that that would happen. I always taught as a side hustle. I was like, oh, I can make my Lululemon money. If I teach a couple master classes, I can buy some new clothes. But Michelle Chassé, shout out to Michelle, who is the head of dance in the musical theater department at BOCO, really got behind me and brought me in to have me teach at the musical theater summer dance intensive. And it was a really powerful experience to see someone who taught you, who you worship, to be like, here, now you should teach at our school. And I was like, oh, well, she believes in me, then maybe I might be good at this. And as a teacher, it stamped this like thing of trust with having my degree and people knowing that we didn't mess around, and knowing that, we really have this sound artistic experience coming from both schools. The degree drops hard when people are like, where did you train? So it sort of fortified me as a teacher before I knew I needed that. And then in addition, I had experience reaching out in my current job. Before I started, I was kind of nervous about transitioning out of performing. And I saw that there was a student who was about maybe 5 years above me, who was listed as a teacher at this school organization. And so I reached out and I said, like, what do you consider yourself? Do you consider yourself retired? Like, do you not perform anymore? This is someone who had played played Glinda and Wicked on the national tour and was an amazing performer. I said, what do you consider yourself? And she said, the way that I look at it, the door is always open. I could always go back if I wanted to go back, but I hadn't thought about the conservatory connecting me to this idea of a non-performing life and supporting me in that way too, which I really feel like it has.
Thank you all three. One thing that kind of came up is, you all kind of reached back into Berkeley or BOCO, and you've maintained these relationships. But one question we're curious about is, think about like your initial years and like you're studying, you just graduated. Have you felt like your alumni community has grown, shrunk? Like, how has it kind of expanded or evolved, from when you graduated to now?
I mean, I'll start. It's absolutely grown. I mean, I was a networker by nature, you guys. And when I was there, a friend of mine, you guys, true story, a friend of mine, they went to high school with me in San Diego, goes, you got to come over to this party over at Harvard. And I'm like, a Harvard party? This is going to be so lame. So I cruise over, and then long story short is I end up meeting the co-founder of Facebook. And so like, as soon as that stuff took on, that was the ultimate networking platform. So I like reached out to like everybody at Berkeley, right? Everybody that was at Northeastern Music Business Program. And I'm just like literally just cold messaging all these people going, I'm studying music business. I'd love to meet for coffee, right? But out of all those messages I sent out, I very rarely got replies back from them. But when I started working in the industry, it was like, oh my gosh, we went to Berkeley together. You sent me this message, But yeah, I'd say that like my Berkeley network grew stronger once I moved to LA, for sure. There's a gentleman named Elmo Lovano, and he's got a company called, it's like whatever, it's a thing called Jam Card. You guys should check it out. But it's like 60% of the people that I showed up to like this, like invite only working musicians, producers, and music business people like network club, like 60% were all Berkeley. And I was just like, whoa. So yeah, like when I got to LA and in my career, definitely my Berkeley network expanded. But the other thing too, that I kind of was expecting, but I wasn't so sure. But like my friends that like I went to Berkeley with, like my best friend, I talk to him every day, is a guy named Jared Braverman, who I mentioned earlier. I always like to brag about him, and he hates it. But he's a hardworking dude. He helps run a company called Live Nation. So, but like throughout all the hecticness in his career, like he's always been there for me as a friend, and we met at Berkeley, taking a trip to a music business. God, was it Polestar or Billboard Touring Awards? But yeah, I had to sit next to him on the Fangwon bus, so, but yeah, my relationships have strengthened. I don't know. Is it the same for you guys, Elena, Stephanie? Have you guys?
Yeah, I would say so. And it's been a mixture of different things. At least for Miami, the alumni network is a little bit smaller than say New York or LA, and that's just, it is what it is. But you know, we are here. And once we find each other, we do have that bond that we went to Berkeley, whether it was the Spanish campus in Valencia or whether it's the Boston one, and we are all working in different parts of the industry. And so we've taken upon ourselves, you know, it's not only the events that Berkeley institution organizes, but then it's also us building those networks and those like just hanging out and what are you doing and how can we connect. So it's definitely grown in that sense of also taking the initiative to like, who is here that went to Berkeley? Because as you said, when you throw that stone, like there's so many people that you'll find that you do have that in common with. So that's kind of been part of it, is making an effort to find those people, even if you didn't go to school with them, that you just share this common thing that you went to school.
Make that effort.
Just like put it out there that you went there, like shamelessly, like, oh, I went to Berkeley, not in like, oh, you know, like you can brag about it, but also like there's a network. And then also additionally, like I said, I stayed in touch with the school. So for me, it helped me specifically because there's a program where they have ambassadors. And so I'm the Miami ambassador. So even people that I don't know, Berkeley connects me with them because they're thinking about moving to Miami. And so I'm already building my network just through that specific thing, where that's where I met the person that became an intern, and he was in Spain and he's like, hey, I want to come to Miami. We gave him an internship and he ended up getting hired for A&R. And so there are so many different ways that this network kind of can be strengthened and can grow. Whether it's you taking the initiative, people that you went to school with, just bumping past with somebody that you're like, oh, you went to Berkeley too. But it's definitely growing. And even though Miami's smaller, I've definitely seen it grow since 2017, which is when I got here. So
I hear all your points about staying connected, and I'm going to speak to something that might sound like a little sad. And that is, my advice to all of you is that you are more than just your achievements. Everyone thinks we go to these big fancy schools and we study to be these awesome artists, and we are all of those things. But sometimes it's hard, and the grind is hard when you first get out there. And I think if you look at someone like me from my experience at Boston Conservatory, and you look at my trajectory on paper, I had a positive experience and I was successful quite quickly, as some people are, but that doesn't define your value. If you decide you want to change your course and you want to be a nurse, or if you decide that you want to go to law school and be a lawyer and do work for something like Lambda Legal, I think that there are so many people that changed paths that did not stay connected because they felt that their value was lost because they did not obtain that achievement that they had thought in their mind that they might have. So I think that, like, stay connected no matter what. Like, yes, and there are connections. Yes, and people could give you a job or help you out when you go into a new Broadway show, and you know there's somebody that you know from school that can help you as you're getting adjusted. But also, like, you are more than your accomplishments and have value. So stay connected no matter what you're doing.
I can speak to that too, because not every single person that I went to school with ended up in music. They ended up either doing their own startups in tech, and it was not music related, and they ended up in different industries because whatever, they had their own motivations. And there was one specific girl, like we were in the same class, and she's no longer pursuing music, but she still loves it and is involved with other maybe community things of like something like women in music, you know. But we ended up both in Miami. So definitely agree with staying in touch, even if you end up, and it's okay also to, like I said, my path, I wanted to be in the music industry, but then I said yes to working in a music nonprofit that was with underserved communities, that was with education, that was in like actual classical and orchestra. And now I'm working in Latin urban. So it's like, you know, it's crazy, but I think, yeah, open yourself up to keeping in touch and being open and being, you do have your value regardless of what it is that you're doing, and just, yeah, building yourself up as well as the community, I would say.
Yeah, and I think too that, both like really, really good points that you guys just brought up, and it's adding to that. The plan is that there is no plan, and if you say yes to opportunities, not knowing where they're going to go, but you say yes and you keep saying yes, people are going to see that. They call that hustle. They call that grind. Right. And so, I just like just like the two of you, Stephanie and Elena, like I've seen friends just go completely pivot from music to something else, but be insanely successful because when they pivot, they've got this X factor, right? They understand this other community. So I have like a lot of friends that like you guys got into tech, got into teaching, got into all kinds of things, but yeah, you never know, where you're going to pivot. And I guess somebody gave me the piece of advice and they said, lower your expectations. I thought that was weird. And like, I think what they were trying to tell me is like you guys are saying is stay open, but like, just don't set so many expectations. Work hard, keep up your relationships, do your thing, but you might be surprised where the path takes you. But yeah, don't be afraid to say no to an opportunity or yes to an opportunity because it's not aligned in this trajectory that you have inside your head.
I think that's super important because sometimes it can be hard. Your
Yeah.
first question was, are you where you expected to be? And it didn't happen quickly. I think for me, it took 10 years. I'm the younger one here, but it still took years of hustle and of saying yes to different things. So I think also allowing yourself to kind of go through this wave that it's okay. So I feel like we don't say that enough. And it's okay to be figuring it out and you never stop figuring it out.
I mean, look at the originals, in the sense of like Ahmet Erdogan, right? Guy was working at a vinyl shop, became a producer. He had never, any intention to be able to start Atlantic, and be a label president. So, and then even like somebody that didn't go to Berkeley, but a friend of mine from San Diego, super into tech. He was just a tech nerd. And he came to me when I was working for Howard and Irving and said like, dude, I don't know, but I want to be in the music business. And because he was able to pivot from his, perspective with technology into music, man, he's done incredibly well. He's awesome. He's an amazing dude. He's like one of the heads of digital for Universal, but he never ever would have thought that. And vice versa, you guys. If you're in music and you see something else, you might add a lot of value to that. Don't underestimate that,
There's a lot of room for collaboration too. I was going to say, like, even after you leave Berkeley, whether it's in music or something else, there's so many, if you see a need for opportunity, like if there's something that's missing, I think that's also huge because then that also gets your name out there and people start to see like, oh, they're doing this or they're doing that. I put together an event and it turned into like this bigger thing than I thought. But through this thing that I saw was missing, I ended up building a network that was not only Berkeley, but was also just beyond Berkeley and beyond music. And it was like, you're meeting these remarkable people and now you're going to connect in so many different ways. So I think if you also see an opportunity, wherever it is, like if the door doesn't open, like build it, like just make your own opportunities. If you see something's missing, like do it. Like the worst thing you can, you'll get a no or it will fail, but fail quickly. That was like a hard lesson because again, you think you're going to be somewhere and then the path is not straight and that can be discouraging. But if you persist, I think eventually you're going to end up in a place that you're happy. So.
I feel like I have like 8,000 questions now based on everything you three just said. If I can go down one path. So you just talked, Stephanie, about like pivoting, really like keeping the momentum, pushing forward, that persistence. But how have y'all navigated around some of those roadblocks or some of the issues that have come up in your way? Did you come over something that you're like, this is insurmountable? I got to either pivot away or, maybe something clicked and it just kind of worked for you. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had a mentor who I worked for at one point said, Peter, you can't lie. You've done it about twice. I've known when you were lying. He goes, you're not willing to cheat and you don't like to steal. I don't think that you should be in the music business as far as management goes. And I was going, oh man, how did I navigate that? Honestly, my whole Berkeley community. I was on the phone with, with Jared Braverman, Joe So Jared's at Live Nation, Joe was at CAA at the time. Gosh, Steve was still over at AEG, and I'm like, you guys, like, what do I do? What do you guys think that I should do? If this is not my thing, if it's not management, and they were there for me because they helped me to understand, okay, no, Peter, you're going to be a good manager because you care more about an artist more than a promoter does, besides Jared. And Joe was telling me, he was like, no offense to agents, but he was just like, he's like, Peter, you're willing to go to bat for an artist, so like this is a good thing, but yeah, not to like, it's no BS. It literally was my Berkeley community to help me figure out if that was for me, and all kinds of things. Like we would have a dinner every 3 weeks, so where we would all meet up. We'd all have dinner and we'd all talk about what was going on, in everybody's career, and just kind of, help each other as far as guidance goes.
So I think that there's a part that's really hard about what we all do, and it's that there is very little separation between who we are and our craft, whatever that craft may be. And so sometimes the negative feedback, she's heavy, right? You have those tough conversations about sometimes they don't like the way you look, or sometimes they want you to look a different way or sound a different way. And all of that is hard. So something that's been helpful to me is one of the biggest gifts that Boston gave me is my yoga mat. I started practicing at oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the studio, but they have a huge studio now on Boylston. That's by the Parish Cafe. But I started practicing yoga there, and it's something that stayed with me to this day, so that no matter what I have faced, whether it's been in my personal life or in the industry or in my, my new teaching career, being on my mat and being able to just find some time to just breathe and reset has been really useful to me throughout my professional career.
Well said.
I think there's different things that helped me. One of them was recognizing when I was done with something, and that meant like, okay, I'm ready for the next thing, and that was okay. Like to just already be done with whatever opportunity you were able to get, and being like, okay, I want to try something else. I want to go somewhere else. And that was okay. Because sometimes when you're like in a stable gig or whatever, you're kind of like scared. Do I let this go and like jump into the unknown? I think it's okay to do whatever is scary. So kind of coming to terms with just saying that to myself was a pretty big thing. And then also like finding people that I could talk to about that inside or outside the Berkeley network was really helpful. So finding those mentors, or even just like people that are already doing it. So for me, it was like reaching out to maybe community organizations, like Women in Music was a big one. Like I joined it. And through there, I was able to meet like veterans. There were not a lot of people that were younger like me, but they could provide that advice that maybe was not so easy to figure out at first. It was also like sending messages on LinkedIn, but not in a random way. Like, don't spam people, like actually like, if there's something you want to find out or like research, like that personalized message, they will respond to you. So I think having the courage in different ways, like to jump for yourself, but also having the courage to reach out to people, whether you know them or not, I think that really helped me, because then I was able to have conversations about self-care and mental health, and like, how did you overcome this? And it's okay if you're feeling down because you're not doing this certain type of thing, like, but that came from those two things of allowing myself to feel whatever I was feeling, and then finding people that I could talk to about it. So that's kind of how I navigated the path that was not always clear.
Can I jump on that? And something Elena said before too. Like, did you ever feel like you had moments where you couldn't be authentically you? Where you had to, like, I don't want to say code switch, but you had to just like completely, you weren't feeling like your authentic self in a moment. And like, how did that make you feel? Like, how did you work through that? I'm just thinking about people who are entering an industry, you know, for the first time potentially, and might feel like they have to do certain things, act a certain way, jump through certain hoops to like get to a certain point.
I got thrown in on the deep end. So the two individuals that I worked for, they've been doing it for like 25, 30 years. So all the people that I got thrown in on the deep end with had been practicing this music business stuff for 20, 25 years. So, you know, and getting, you know, the opportunity to work with bands that I was just like, oh my gosh, I have nothing in common with this band. This is very hard to be my unique self, you know, being out on the road with Poison or, you know, but what I realized, like out of all, you know, all the bands that we worked with, right? Aerosmith, Def Leppard, Poison, Chicago, Chris Isaac, Fleetwood Mac. It was Jimmy Buffett that taught me the value of being your authentic self. And that is your superpower. And like Jimmy said to me one night, he said, Peter, I don't look great. So I've only written about 3 songs people will ever know. But I walk on stage in flip-flops and shorts and I walk off with $1 million. And I was like, damn straight, you know, like right on. And so like I really had Buffett and Howard Kaufman be my rock in a very crazy industry where everybody's trying to be something other than themselves oftentimes. And what I respected the most about Howard is that he was, you know, he was one of the top music managers of all time. But the guy walked up the first day that we did this merger with Frontline Management. It was 20 different management firms, right? That all got consolidated underneath one group before it merged with Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So we had all these new companies up there, and nobody knew who Howard was because he usually did business out of his home. He didn't really like people, but he came into the office in sweatpants and sweatshirt and a full gray beard, and somebody called security on him. But like, this is a great example, is that like being his authentic self, like allowed him an incredible career, right? And then him taking that approach with his artist and going, don't be something that you're not, man. You like drinking beer, you like going on boats, you like going to the beach, you like, you know, this lifestyle, you know, be you. But yeah, so I got lucky. I had 2 mentors to help keep me grounded, you know, to be my authentic self. And then Jared Braverman too. I mean, I can't say it enough. Like, that guy has advised me throughout my whole entire career and going, Peter, don't be anything that you're not, you know, all these artists and all this stuff, we all wake up the same way. So yeah, I think having a couple of people on your side, whether it's people that you work for or your friends or your Berkeley network, to remind you is that like, be you. And if you're authentic, you know, people will gravitate towards that. So
I was gonna say like the opposite, like, or not the opposite, but for me, I always showed up as I am, like this, what you see is what you get. And it was recognizing when I didn't fit, and it was not a bad thing, because when you find those places that it's just like you fit in, you click, and they support you, and don't hinder, like, because I had goals, I had places where, you know, I got the feedback of this is how you should act, or, you know, in meetings, this is how you should be, and this is what you should say, because, you know, I'm on the other end of being more on the business side. and that didn't feel great because it's like, well, this is me. Like, should I be more like that or no? Because that's not who I am. So as soon as I left those places, which I would dare to say was toxic, and found those places that were the opposite, and you could immediately like, it was like this tribe of you fit, and it's, you spend more time at work or whatever you're doing than you do in your personal life. Like that's it's the industry, like it's, you know, you work really hard. So if you're in a place that's not nurturing in the way of you can be yourself and you can show up and you can speak up and propose ideas, and they will like back you up and they'll be like, yeah, go and run. That's very much where I'm at now. Is okay, I'm the marketing manager, but if I have an idea to give back or to put together an event, they're like, yeah, go do it. Like, you know, like they don't put me in a box and they don't tell me I have to be a certain way. Like, the reason why I'm succeeding and the reason why they hired me is because of who I am. So if I wouldn't be true to myself if I showed up and I wasn't my authentic self. So you can always tell. You can always tell if you're in the right place, because you'll be able to be who you are.
There's one question in chat that Zach gave a great answer to. So the question was, how do you contact the people that you admire in the industry? Sometimes it's just impossible to contact their managers, their agents. Zach recommended, finding out their preferred method of contact. Some people just aren't accessible, or maybe find out where some spaces they're active. Peter, your hand's already up.
Yeah, I know the answer. You ready for this, guys? Persistence. That's the right number. Persistence. Don't worry about what's the best line. Don't worry about any of that. Hit them all up. Do it once a week for 3 years. You'll get a hold of them. Serious. I mean, for Jared's internship, we had a class with a guy named Jeff Dornfeld, and who's I believe just retired. Just awesome. And Jeff was like, he saw for our final paper, we had to reach out, cold call somebody in the music business, right, to interview them to do this paper. And he saw Jared and I's like people that we were going for, and he was just like, wow, good luck trying to get a hold of these people, But in Jared's case, he was just persistent, calling Live Nation. He was calling the CEO of Live Nation, calling Michael Rapino, not calling like the front desk receptionist, And they're just like, yeah, he's on another call right now, with U2. He's in a meeting with Jay-Z. And Jared's just like persistent, goes after it. Finally, he gets a phone call back from Rapino and says, listen, man, I know you've been trying to get a hold of me. I know the whole spiel. I don't have time to be able to take the call, but you can have a conversation with Arthur Fogel. I've already talked to him. Arthur Fogel's a boss, he worked with Madonna, and he helped shape modern pop culture. And so, that's all he was, is just, there's a fine line between persistence and annoying. If you're gracious and you're positive and you're grateful, and you're persistent, that works. Just do it, Don't think about trying to find the right email for 20 days and then finding the right one. Just hit up the wrong email for 20 days. That's, I don't know.
I was gonna say that kind of goes back to being authentic. And I mentioned this before, like, send those personalized messages. Like, I like, even at my job right now, like, people are trying to find their way in, and I respect the hustle, but sometimes like there's the right way to hustle, because they'll copy paste the same message to 5 of us. We're gonna talk to each other. We're gonna find out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, those kind of things will happen real fast.
Don't do that. Like,
yeah.
Like, try to, like, if you're trying to connect with these people, and like he said, like, maybe I'm busy and I don't have time, but here's another person that can help you, and you'll get there too. So I'll give you that contact. But if you're copy pasting, I'm not gonna respond.
Totally.
Like,
I mean, and I'll shout out one of my mentees right now. He's awesome. His name is Tyler. He's on here somewhere. Y'all should connect with Tyler. Tyler's the man. Here's why Tyler's the man. As soon as the emails went out, right, to get connected to your mentor, Tyler and our like literally, I like checked my feed and boom, sent me a message just being like, dude, so nice to meet you. When can we set up a time to talk? And I'm like, yes. I was like, you're gonna be successful no matter what, you know? And like that's that's what it takes in this business. And the other thing that I was gonna mention, I don't even know if it's applicable to what we're talking about right now, but I feel that it's you guys, talent is a good thing, right? But being a good hang, like, just being a good hang, being a good person, doing the right things, standing up for the right things, man, that's everything. You could be the most talented guitar player, right? You could go into that audition and just be a hammer and lay that thing down. But if you're not, they might hire the next chick after because she was just really funny, had really great jokes and like was a good vibe. So don't ever underestimate that, guys. It's not about being the most talented or the most experienced or any of that.
Yeah, again, just showing up like as you are, because we also say this here, like the people that we work with, like the most, it's the people that we want to hang out with. And it's not like we're all friends and all that stuff, but we enjoy like talking to each other in those conversations. And if we do hang out, like we get along, like so it's a small industry. Like we think it's so big, but then you're like bumping into people that you met like last year or like whatever 5 years ago or like yesterday, it doesn't matter, and they will always remember how you treated them. I'm really big on this, like be good to people. I had an intern, their intentions were not clear, and I was like, man, I believed in you, I gave you a shot, and like you were not like good to people, and now you're leaving. But if somebody were to ask me, I'll be honest and say, like not like shit talking or anything like that, excuse the language, but it's more like you have to be good to people because you never know how and when your paths are going to cross, and they're going to cross because if it's not we're working together, this person knows you and they're gonna mention you, and what is that like? So always be good to people because the industry is small
and it's always growing.
Small.
And people's roles are always changing. The same people who took class next to you, the same people who took class next to you become the people in the front of the room assisting the choreographer, and then become the person in front of the room. So, watch your words in the elevator. Whenever you should treat a building. I got some really good advice when I was probably like 12 years old at a Disney, like one of those conventions where you go and you take all the dance classes in a day. And they said, you never know who you're talking to. They said you should treat the building of your audition or whatever you're doing, your professional environment, treat it like you would never say anything that you wouldn't want anyone else to hear the entire time you're there. And it's not about being fake, and it's not about being, like being slick, but you really just don't know who's in the elevator or who's turning a corner as you're, complaining about how poorly you did at the last audition you left to, and you're like standing in front of a choreographer, in front of someone from the artistic team. So
yeah, if you want to get respect, give it, right? I think that's what it's about. It's not, guaranteed. And I'll add to that too, is that one thing that really went very far for me, both at Berkeley and then out of Berkeley, was two things. One, making other people look good. Making other people look good. Not worrying about myself. Making other people look good. And I would always be the one to connect two Berkeley people together and be like, yo, you guys got to hang. And before you know it, that starts something, right? And they're always going to say, well, the person that, helped that was Peter, So then you earn trust and respect that way. And the other thing is, I cannot emphasize this enough, and I'm sure Elena and Stephanie and you too, Joseph, like you guys will be with me on this one. Don't just ask questions. Ask great questions. You ask great questions, right? You'll get great answers, And think about that. And I think that that's another thing with health and wellness and mental health. Music business is fast paced, stressful, right? The people need responses yesterday. artists are throwing a hissy fit over their, you know, their Ben and Jerry's being lost on their bus on the road, and an agent's calling you saying he needs, to get approval on these holds. And so your tendency is to kind of speed up, right? But I'd say the opposite. I'd say slow down, take a deep breath inside your head, and ask yourself great questions, and then ask other people great questions, and that goes a long ways, long ways.
To add to that, I would say also your work ethic, whatever it is that you're doing. If you do good work, like that's everything, because yes, talent, but also like what you deliver, like what you put into it, like that self-leadership, because when it gets hard, if and it will get hard, if you love what you're doing and you're doing it well, people are going to remember that as well. So not only how you're treating them, but what do you bring to the table? What is your value? As Elena said, whatever, regardless of whatever it is that you're doing, I think that goes a long way. And back to the questions I was interviewing, I just had my interns, so I have a lot of interns stories, but one of them, their experience, they didn't have a lot of experience inside their interns, but some have already done internships, others have things that relate. This one guy, he didn't, and I still did the interview, like, I liked his personality and everything. And it was because of his questions at the very end that I gave him a shot, because he asked me these questions and I was like, wow, I've never even asked these questions myself in an interview. And it was like, how, if you have any hesitations because of my resume, what can I say now to answer those questions right now in this moment? And I was like, okay, let's ask these questions. Like, but it was because they asked these great questions and they flipped them around and whatever. Now he's working with me and I see him every day and he's doing an awesome job. So, he's getting the experience he may not have had, but now he's working at a great place, and that's gonna take him somewhere else, or I'm gonna keep him. But it was because of great questions, and now he's here delivering good work and being nice to people, and he's himself. So all of these things that we're saying, they're not cliche, they very much are the real thing in this industry, I would say.
So speaking of great questions, we have one final question in the chat, and then we'll end for the day. Have you ever gotten a job that disappointed you? And how did you deal with that?
Ooh, I can speak to this in an interesting way, right? So I went to school and studied classical ballet and Shakespeare and all of these awesome things. And I did Mamma Mia for 3 years. And I loved it. And it was a great paycheck, but wasn't necessarily artistically fulfilling every day. No. So I had to make sure that I did things that kept me inspired in other ways. I made sure I was taking classes and doing scene work, so I felt like an actor, and making sure that I was, doing stuff outside the kickball change and taking classes that made me feel like an artist, so that I was nurturing my artist self while my artist self was doing its job. Because I think that that's something, especially when you're on the come up in the beginning. I remember gigging at bar and bat mitzvahs, just like kicking my legs and dancing. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I just there to pay my bills. But I think that there's a lot of things that can be unfulfilling in the beginning, and don't let them discourage you, but seek out those opportunities that feed your inner artist. If any of you have ever read The Artist's Way, it's an awesome thing. If you have not read The Artist's Way, this is now my gift to you from today. Please go order yourself a copy, take it from the library. But it's just it's a guided journal experience that just teaches you how to nurture your inner artist, which is important to do no matter what kind of work you're doing.
I will second The Artist's Way. Definitely recommended reading.
I think for me, I got this opportunity and it was awesome and I loved it and I loved the mission and everything that I was doing. But then somehow along the way, that's why I said, like, recognizing when things are no longer serving you and that it's okay to leave them. It was disappointing, like later on, not in the beginning. And that just came from different situations and things like that. But I think the way we react to these disappointments also has and it goes back to mental health and kind of taking care of yourself. And yeah, sometimes it's okay. Like the disappointment will teach you something. So again, not maybe cliche, but in those disappointments and in those hard moments, and maybe when I hit rock bottom, because I did, it was because of those situations that now I'm where I am, and I'm able to better handle situations, and yeah. So I think disappointment is normal, and normalizing it is super important. Like you will fail, but like fail fast and keep it moving, because yeah, it happens.
Yeah. I can agree with what both you ladies have said. You know, I couldn't agree more too on that. Is fail fast, fail harder. One of my friends that I grew up with is an Olympic athlete for snowboarding, and the thing that we always ask him is like, "How are you catching such height, right, off of this pipe?" And he's like, "I am feeling harder and faster than anybody else is. That's why I'm able to create so much inertia." Right. And so, yeah, I think that as long as you are staying your authentic self, people will forgive your mistakes and your perception of what is a failure. But like when I first started working out as I started out as a runner, then I became front desk receptionist, and I was an assistant, right? And then I was doing marketing promotions, then I managed my own bands. Throughout the way, there were roles, not necessarily jobs, but roles where I was just like, this is not what I expected. And then even like you guys, like meeting somebody who you looked up to your whole entire life and going like, I can play every single second on every single album that you've ever written, and being like, oh, this person is not the same as their music, right? So definitely have been disappointed on that end. But like, for instance, like with this one particular group that I was working on this role with, it was not what I expected, and I had to be very political about the thing and do my job, right? But out of that, I met an amazing human named Dan Weiner, who ran a company called Monterey Peninsula Artists that's now part of Paradigm. But he's an agent, and he's one of the very few agents that I really get along with. But yeah, there's only lessons, and then there's only opportunities to meet new people through sometimes something that you're going, well, this job isn't what I thought it was going to be. This kind of sucks, or this person kind of sucks. Never underestimate the fact that you will meet some amazing people in that process, and you're going to learn some amazing things of not just what to do, but also what not to do sometimes, right?
I was gonna say that like, the biggest lesson I would say is like you find out you don't like it. Like that's just as important as finding what you love. Is like, I don't like this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's so big. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful note to end on. I want to say thank you to you three for taking the time. Stephanie, Peter, Elena, thank you for sharing your wisdom today. Thank you for everyone in chat who was chatting with each other and hyping each other up as well. I appreciate that. I know Nicole put a link to The Artist's Way. That's part of the Berkeley e-library, so check that out. We will make a recording of this available later, so feel free to share with other people in the program. And thank you so much. And thank you again to you three. Appreciate it.